Hello, everyone. Happy Saturday. We are so glad you're here. If you do not know me, my name is Katie Gideon, and I will be the on-camera facilitator for this weekly setup. I want to give a huge shout out to the other facilitator who you will see in the chat, Maya. We are glad to be here. We are glad to see quite a few of our regular weekend socialers. Welcome back. It is always glad to have you. And then if you are new, we want to welcome you. If you haven't been to a setup or a social, let us know because each social has its own vibe. I always feel like Saturday night has a whole different vibe than some of the other days. So it's always great. And we are certainly glad you're here. And you can always participate in as much or as little as you want in the socials. Just double check that if you want to engage in the chat, make sure it is set to everyone. If it is set to hosts and panelists, that comes to just myself and Maya. And while we are happy to answer anything that you would put there, we usually assume that you want other folks' perspective. So just keep that in mind. And then, as always, you can work on your journal as we go through this, or maybe you've already done your setup or you want to do it a little bit later and you're just here for some of the inspiration and the community that we have established here. So you can definitely engage in the chat. There is no due date on these pages, as we like to say, and there is no one looking over your shoulder seeing how much you've accomplished. But at the same time, if the chat is too much, you can certainly close that using the X at the top. If I am too much, you can mute me with the tab on all of those. Same thing with the music. But you can certainly use what you want from this and take what you want from this because we are just glad that you're here to spend this amount of time on your own self-care journey. And so, as always, please be kind and courteous to yourself and others. No promotions or spam. Respect everyone's privacy. No hate speech or bullying. Please limit repetitive product and accessory questions, though we do like to share not only our products, but we know that our Silk and Sonder fam are amazing and they like to share some of the other tools, maybe outside of the Silk and Sonder product line, which we love to have that. But again, make sure that we're doing it in moderation so we don't detract from why we're here, which is to set up our pages. And as always, we will redirect most of your customer care inquiries to our team, hello@silkandsonder.com. But if you have something that you want to flag just to myself and Maya, we can certainly send it over to headquarters just to highlight it. But for the most part, a lot of your answers, everything and anything and everything that you need is going to go through hello@silkandsonder.com. And then, as always, Sonder Socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community, but you are responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. So if you've had a week, no offense, Maya and I were chatting before this, we both kind of had a week that we weren't expecting, but we are here and we are glad that we're here. So there may be some things that you want to talk about. Maybe there's some things that you can't address because of the potential attitude that you have brought to the table, to the point even my parents said, I probably should get off the phone because I was having an attitude. So just keep that in mind, is that you have come exactly as you are. And sometimes you are in the mood to tackle some of these things. Sometimes you are not in the mood to tackle any of these things. And sometimes you are just in a mood and you just want to be here to sit and listen and commiserate, but also get inspiration and support and celebrate everybody else around you because you're like, man, at least someone out there is having a good time. So we are glad that you're here exactly as you are. And so with that, we are still leaning into our new month and our new theme with alignment. And I came across kind of both of these because I think it also leaned into a little bit more of the kind of being present. And I always try to find a way to tie that into, because there are definitely days where I feel like I'm just going through it, kind of the head on a balloon, and you're just a little detached from things. So I liked this idea of alignment as a vibration, a movement of energy that feels at once grounded, centered, and enlightened, and propels you gracefully forward to what feels good and meant for you. And so I think that is one of those of like, again, kind of resetting yourself, bringing yourself to at least a center. If you've come to my socials before, I like to use some of those things as coming back to what is your equilibrium, what is your even keel. So I like that idea of aligning all of those things. And sometimes it also kind of takes in another form, which is why I liked the clarity is a perception. It's an emotional alignment of thoughts, intuitions, inclinations, expression, and expectations. So I like the idea of calling it also something else because alignment just kind of it takes me a little bit longer to wrap my head back around to kind of what alignment actually means. I just think chiropractor, which again isn't a bad thing, but that just becomes one of those things that you can't control. And it's like, there's some physical alignment that has to take place, but I do feel like the alignment to me is something that I need to kind of mentally and emotionally prepare for. So that's why I like the idea of being present, looking for this clarity. And I've also, in my previous socials, talked about the kind of perception versus reality versus expectation. And I think that's also really important because I think once those expectations and reality are aligned, kind of attitude is everything. So these are just my thoughts, but I would love to read yours in the chat, especially around kind of your thoughts on alignment. Are you warming up to it a little bit more? Are you still kind of on the outskirts of like, we'll see? And then the rest of our agenda is we're going to do our week 2 for the alignment mind map. And then we're going to do our rosebud thorn as well as our weekly set of pages in our journal. So we will certainly, excuse me, we will certainly prompt all of those as we go. And so we're going to start with our mind map. And if you haven't been to a weekly setup social, we have really taken on this mind map concept, which is an opportunity for us to explore 4 different questions, 4 different prompts that digs a little bit deeper into the theme. And it is something that you can use the entire week to look at. And sometimes they kind of tie into previous themes, we've found just really some honestly elegant and magical connections across all the themes. So I do think renewal and alignment kind of went very well hand in hand. And I do think alignment is a very appropriate theme for a start of the year. So I've been really enjoying the mind maps a lot because it's also one of those that you can kind of make some changes or tweaks or reframe these to kind of fit whatever you want or whatever you need. And there have definitely been some times where whatever has gone in my head that is triggered by something earlier that week has certainly gone down a slightly weird path when it comes to the mind map. So I've just appreciated the opportunity to kind of look at it in that kind of context. And as always, we include the previous weeks, but if you didn't get to that, don't worry. It's not like you're behind. You just have the opportunity to do so. So these are not printed in your journal. You find either a blank page or the blank spot in your journal that you can address all of these. So week 1 was the core connection. Week 2 is now habit harmony. And so think about your current morning or evening rituals. If they are perfectly aligned with your 2026 goals, what is one small scraper action you could take this week to clear away the ice of old unhelpful habits? And I love this one, because I love a clever connection to the seasons. So obviously we need to get out some ice and de-icing things. But I also think it's another one of those to like look at an opportunity to focus just on some of those habits and see kind of where we can make some of those tweaks. But as always, the first 2 questions are the one from the previous slide. The example on the right is mine, and that's kind of the design that I go with. And then I wanted to ask some additional questions if you need that type of reframing. And it's, do you need help with some of these? Or are these tools that you need from potentially another toolbox, especially when it comes to morning rituals and evening rituals? Because I also think rituals can be almost a little bit interchangeable with routines. But in my personal opinion, I do think rituals maybe leans a little bit more to the mental and emotional side of things versus like a routine, which are like the things that you do. But that's just my take on it. And so I then wanted to ask are these more actions or mental and emotional activities? Because I do think those are important. And then as I was thinking of mine, because I am actually a creature of habit, but when it comes to my morning and evening routines, all of it kind of centers around sleep. I am a sleep procrastinator. I am one of those that will stay up late just because I can. I will reprioritize what is important. And so it throws off all of my routines or even rituals, to the point that I think even my ritual now is that I don't go to bed before a certain time. So I think it's one of those that always kind of cracks me up. But then I thought this was an interesting thought about it as well, is there a single step to get the dominoes going on some of those routines and rituals? Or are there additional spots kind of along the way that requires you to hit those dominoes again in order to get those rituals to kind of fall into place? Or that's required for the extra de-icing? Because what I would say when it comes to my morning routines, I just have a hard time getting up because I went to bed really late the last night and I'm tired. But I still have all of those things that I have to get done before I sit down and go to work. And that's everything from take medication, change clothes, open blinds, those type of things, get all those type of prep things. Whereas like my evening rituals, those would be kind of multiple steps because then it's, stop intaking liquid, stop, put your phone down. There becomes these like far more like rigid domino requirements that just keep getting stuck as opposed to the like, if I just get up and go to bed. Because getting up to go to bed, it's not as simple as it sounds. But with that being said, I am going to stop talking, but we are currently working on our mind map again on that week 2 exploration of some of the habit harmony and how we can kind of bring those in a little bit more alignment. And again, you can kind of think of it in that de-icing manner because we can't move forward if we can't see where we're going. Or you can also look at it kind of the domino scenario that I use. So please feel free to work on that. I am going to play a song and we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And I appreciate all of the kind suggestions that you're making around your routines. But I also appreciate that there's quite a few of us that certainly this was a topic that needed some attention. And I know a lot of it really stems from phone. And as we said, I do have one of those do not disturb settings. But again, because of where I'm located, that got overridden today just because I'm obviously still up. And again, those are just conscious decisions that I make. But I also have the option of I do have a digital clock that can be an alarm clock. So there have been times where I have left my phone elsewhere in a different room, and I've brought that alarm clock in just to like make sure that I'm not distracted at that point. But I also fell victim to a book that I was reading and stayed up way too late. But 'tis life. But that was again a conscious decision that I made. So a lot of it is that I know it kind of spins around the sleep and the procrastination and there's quite fascinating studies of it of just I want to have the control of my day, and sometimes the time I don't get to control that until much, much later in the day. And it's still just that it's so quiet, no one's going to bother you, all of those things. But this was certainly a well-timed look, especially as we start the new year and kind of revisit some of those habits as we go. And you will be able to continue to work on this throughout the week. So thank you, everybody, for sharing. So now please join me on page 36 in your January journal for our rosebud thorn exercise. And this is again another one of the things that I really enjoy because it is that opportunity to acknowledge what went well, acknowledge something that you're looking forward to, and acknowledge something that maybe didn't go as well, all in a single page, all in a single column, and make that conscious decision of what you're going to do with that. Are you going to give it its moment in the sun? Are you going to have to kind of readjust whatever mental and emotional and physical response is required because it's not going to get solved overnight? Or is it going to be one of those you're just going to let it have its moment and you're going to leave it behind and you're going to, take no lesson learned from it, but you are going to take other action items as you do so. So I really like it, and I also love it because, like, again, if you guys come to our socials often enough, it is a really great snapshot into the lives that each and every one of you are doing. And so, the rose is something that went well, something that was a highlight, something that made you happy. Something that put a smile on your face, something that was just really nice. For me, it was kind of two. One, I went and saw a Rocky Horror Picture Show with a couple of my really good drama friends, some of which who had never seen it before, which there's nothing more fun than seeing someone who's never seen Rocky Horror before and is not as familiar with the lore. Whereas I can probably still recite all of the songs kind of lyric by lyric. But it's a fun one. And we did. We had a great time. But also kind of the big highlight is a couple of my other friends and I, we did the Walk of Leith, which is a really long waterway in Edinburgh. And we started from about city center and went out to Leith. So it was about a 9 mile walk. And it was such a nice day, but it was so icy. It was still quite cold, but it was just so nice to be outside. Because you'll see why, because my thorn has just worn me out. So I needed to get outside. And I was really lucky that it was such a nice day. And so that was really fun. An emerging opportunity is something that you're looking forward to, or something that is on the horizon, or something that is out there that you haven't quite figured out if it's going to be a rose or a thorn, and if you can somehow cultivate it to be one or the other. Tomorrow, there are a couple of so I joined the main character club when I was here. It's initially started in Edinburgh, but more chapters are popping up other places. And so one of the gals is hosting a vision board session tomorrow afternoon. And while I am not the biggest vision board person, Theory Silk and Saunders actually helped me embrace the vision board idea a little bit more. So it'll be really fun to just hang out with them and chat and kind of just talk about all of the weird, nerdy things that we get to do. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then the thorn, that's the challenge. Or even as I now like to reframe it, something that is taking up too much of your time, energy, and effort. And it's just taking up, again, too much of those things on your mental and emotional and physical health. I rent over here, which is great. But my ceiling started flooding the other day. So I had to call and make some corrections. Luckily, it was not my water that was causing the leaks. It was one two flats above me. And so the one above me, no one's occupied it right now. So it went all through there and it's just A gift that keeps on giving. So I'm dealing with that. And then I had to change one of my light bulbs, which again, if you've been with me in these socials before, changing light bulbs over here infuriates me. So really, my apartment is in timeout, which is why I needed to go outside and we needed some separation. And that's where even my parents said I was just being a little too sassy. And I was telling them, well, my apartment's made me mad. And they're like, are we sure that's the only thing that's mad? So I've just been quite sassy, and that's just been the chaos that has been, and it is what it is. But again, not my circus, not my monkeys, but I need to currently use the tent, which is slightly infuriating. So we are on page 36. And if you would like to share in the chat your rosebud thorns, we would love to celebrate all of those roses, get excited for those upcoming buds, and then, like I said, provide whatever mental and emotional support necessary for those thorns. And we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And I do appreciate that Maya also shared her rosebud thorn. 'Cause like I said, we spent the rehearsal just before this kind of commiserating on the week we did not intend to have. And so it's one of those, I appreciate the opportunity, one, to share it with each and every one of you, just because there is an element of certain transparency that I would say we as facilitators experience. And I do always feel a little bit better being able to do this exercise and just put it out into the world so that someone else can kind of commiserate. But it also certainly helps that, everyone feels a little bit better when someone is like, that is really unfortunate, and we hope that it gets better. There is nothing more healing and nothing more satisfying than getting that from the chat over here. And I hope you all certainly feel the same. And as always, please continue to share in the chat even as we move to the next pages and the next sections, because at the end of the day, this is kind of your time, how you want to spend it, how you choose to spend it. Is certainly up to you. So please feel free to do that. And especially if we need to go back to a different slide or back to a different prompt, also let us know because we can make that happen. So now we are going to move on to page 40 and 41 in your January journal. And this is how I kind of kick off all of my socials when it comes to the weekly setup pages, to the point, again, creature of habit. You all could probably repeat this verbatim. And it's more of I always kind of want to sit and ask myself, what do I need this week? Because sometimes what I need is completely different. Sometimes what I need is something that I found through my rosebud thorn, because right now I need to be a little bit more flexible and I need to make sure that water is contained. So that certainly adjusts what I have planned, what I have upcoming, and kind of all of those things. So this is one of those that I highly recommend to ask yourself, what do you need? What do you need from this week? Do you need the pages exactly as written? Do you need them to be independent little sections that you can just answer as you go? Or do they need to be kind of knitted together to provide a little bit extra support? Or do you need to completely repurpose this page, completely repurpose these page, completely change everything in order to help you accomplish the week that you want to have? Or sometimes what you need is a break from some of these sections. So maybe it is taking time to kind of lean into those habits, lean into those new routines. Maybe it is spending a time to kind of establish what you want your word of the year to be. I have not come up with my word of the year. I think I have a general idea, but I'm not one of those that is set on a specific word. I'm a word bank type person. So I'm still kind of working on it. And so I will continue to keep everybody posted, but it is an opportunity to set this up to kind of help support that. So we're going to start at the top of page 40 with this week, I want to feel. And I like to kind of reframe this to how do I want to feel this time next week? And that is because it gives me an opportunity to, again, align my expectations with my reality a little bit. And that's more on the thing of, well, what do I want to accomplish? What do I need to do? What are the habits and activities that I want to schedule? And how is that going to help support how I want to feel this time next week? Because a lot of those things are things that I kind of need to remind myself. And sometimes it is a word, sometimes it's a phrase, sometimes it is an affirmation. Don't worry, Chris, I'll go back to those kitty ones, which is kind of funny because I'm more of a dog person, but the kitties crack me up. Maybe it is 1% better. Maybe it is more of something, less of something. Maybe it's multiple words because you have multiple vibes that you need to hit for each day. Maybe it's leaning into the theme. Maybe it's leaning into alignment. Maybe it's leaning into kind of that word of the year or the word of year exploration. Or maybe it is a sticker because as we know, pictures are worth 1,000 words and stickers are just little pictures that need to be stuck and fulfill their destiny. So I'm going to give you some time to work on this and I will see you soon. But if you want to share in the chat, how do you want to feel this time next week? Or how do you want this week you want to feel? And we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. So now I'm going to combine, still on page 40, but I'm going to combine the weekly major three goals and the weekly to-dos. Because for me, these go a little bit hand in hand. And for me, the weekly major three goals do not change that much. These tend to be the mental and emotional reminders that I have to give myself, which one of them is certainly going to be not my circus, because that not only applies to my current apartment situation, but it also applies to work sometimes. So that is going to be kind of my mental and emotional reminder for the week. And then I have my to-dos that we'll then talk about as well. And so this can be something that you can categorize. Maybe you have a mind, a body, and a soul goal. Maybe it is leaning into the alliterations. I know I have talked about that I'm in kind of just this ad. The seasonal kind of pseudo depression has kind of impacted me a lot heavier this year, and I'm not too sure why. But I love the idea for the alliterations because that is a great way to trick your mind to get infatuated and excited about it. So Kimberly L is one of our regular socialers. She did the revisit, restore, and relax. So that is kind of a clever way to trick yourself into kind of getting a little bit more inspiration and a little bit more motivated to do some of those things. But also these could be the like three big things that you need to do. And another kind of, I think, take on this is that since we talked about the habit harmony, maybe this is where you want to focus on kind of your early morning routine, a midday routine, and then an evening routine. And so those can be maybe your three goals kind of around those rituals or routines. So that is a way to kind of change this particular square to match whatever goal you want if you're pulling from that mind map. And then again, I like the alliteration of the create, which is a U goal, the consume, which is another goal, the cavort, which is a movement, and the commune, which is a social component. So again, playing up that tricking yourself into getting really excited, or even the frog, the fun, and the fierce. And so sometimes it can also be affirmations. And again, the motivation because you're leaning more into the mental and emotional alignment. I also noticed that some people are talking about their word of the day. Maya did just put in the Silk and Sonder 2026 word of the year quiz, which can be a really good starting point. I know I've used it as some inspiration, but I've made some additional changes to it. And as always, just because the box says for three goals, maybe it's more two things. Maybe it's a home and a work. And maybe it is that kind of focus point. And then you have the weekly to-dos. Which again, I loved this because this was again my vibe this week is again, I don't want to be a bad influence, but you should skip your to-do list and finish that book instead, which is absolutely what I did Thursday. No regrets, because it was quite a good, it was quite a good book, but it did mean that I had to do a little bit more on Friday, which is perfectly fine, but that was the trade-off. We agreed. And so it can be a traditional to-do list. It can be a to-do list. The difference between the to-do and the to-da is that everything is to-done. It is just when you celebrate it. And I also, again, as I was dealing with just the seasonal funk that I found myself in, normally I am a to-da person that also will use an Eisenhower matrix when I need to kind of micromanage my life a little bit. And that is the do, decide, delegate, and delete. But I do not delete anything because I do live alone. I just delay it. And same thing, I've had to lean a little bit more into delegation, which I appreciate. The relief that I have gotten from asking for help and doing delegation, I will admit it under duress, but it is a lot of those decisions. I'm so glad I made them, and I will make them again every other time. But I've had to lean a little bit more into the Pomodoro technique because I've actually had to set timers of you will get this done in this amount of time. And it's just been a little bit painful in that regard, but I have gotten the stuff done. I've gotten what I need to do. And those are just the extra steps that I've had to take to deal with my attitude. But maybe it is just a reprioritization, a reshuffling of these. Maybe it is the needs and wants. Maybe it's the don't do this instead. Maybe this is where just kind of the break that you need because your to-dos are broken down a little bit more in one of the other formats that we have on these pages. Maybe it is the weekly wins. Maybe you break it down in the work and personal categories and those needs and wants that will then provide direct support to those goals that you have. And same thing with the acknowledging that there are boring tasks that you got to do, but then there can also be fun tasks. And being able to put those on one page to see that duality is always helpful. So I am going to give you some time to work on this. Let me know if you need to go back to it and another example, and we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And so now we are going to move to that last section on page 40, the habits and activity tracker, or the habities, as Maya has referred to them. I am absolutely a creature of habit, even though my morning and evening habits are not great. But I want to do three things every day. I want to move, I want to read, I want to journal. And so those three things are listed on my monthly habit tracker. I then pull them over into my weekly page. And this is what I've been doing for, I feel like ages at this point. And so I bring into alignment the ability to manage my reality and my expectations. And that again is going to depend on whether my workload, what other activities I have scheduled outside of that. But I will absolutely set aside time for that. But as I've mentioned, I currently don't have a car here. So a lot of my, sometimes my movement is a set workout, or sometimes it is a 9 mile hike, or sometimes it is just walking to and fro wherever I'm commuting to. As I said, I went down to the Playhouse with my drama friends, so I actually walked back up the hill with a good friend of mine, and we were chatting. So it becomes more of like the disguised movement. But I knew that that was what I was going to accomplish and that was what I was going to be able to do. So that's kind of how I have started incorporating that. But maybe you want to focus on those habits and activities that you want to stop. Maybe this is where you always kind of want to micromanage a little bit, which I know micromanagement can be a bit of a dirty word, but I think sometimes it can be really helpful if you're just kind of struggling to get things that stick. And so maybe that is what you kind of need here, especially if you maybe want to focus on a morning routine, and then maybe switch halfway through to an evening routine or put that elsewhere. Maybe it is truly setting a goal. Maybe it's not setting a goal. Maybe this is more of your mental and emotional reminders to get you through the week. Maybe this is the section that you just need a break from. Maybe your weekdays look a little bit different than the weekends, and just because there are 5 lines here does not mean you need to use all five. Maybe, like I said, for me, it's three, and I'll usually add in a fourth, just for fun. And for me, it has been kind of the tools and techniques I can use to trick myself, to kind of pull myself out of the seasonal sadness that is occurring. And I'm doing better at it, and it didn't make a difference. That was wearing bright colors, listening to upbeat music, getting sun when I can, as well as some of those fun alliterations. And like I said, the Pomodoro technique was really helpful. And this is also one of those, especially as you're starting to kind of get back into your journal routine, maybe this is where you can kind of help yourself. So maybe you take a week to go back and look at, maybe I want to work on the mind map. Maybe I want to work on some of the other January prompts. Maybe you take a note out of Jen's playbook and set aside some time to work on the coloring page. Maybe it's going back and reviewing your intentions, going back and looking at your trackers. Pull a little bit of a Hansel and Gretel moment and help you find your way home. Because I also find that sometimes that's just what's really helpful and necessary, is to just kind of go back and refocus those routines. And then you all know I love my iconography. And I've repurposed my expense tracker for my adventure list and or bucket list. So I just get inspiration from all of these. But I love the magic that calling these something really special. And part of it is, sending a letter, writing something positive every day. I am back on that train where I use my now one thing for the day. I'm putting something that I did well. That was homework that my previous therapist had me do. And it makes a world of difference because sometimes it is just like, I responded to an email, or it is like, I actually flossed my teeth that day. So it doesn't have to be earth shattering or earth shaking. It is just something that you positively acknowledge about yourself that you did well that day. And it is quite powerful. And then again, love the visuals here because at the same time, a self-care spa day is something that can be little, but putting it on a pedestal makes it something magic. And some of those ideas. So I also always appreciate the inspiration here. So I am going to give you time to work on this, and we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And like I said, what I really like about these is just embracing the magic of ordinary days, which is why I like to put some of these things on, again, a little bit of a special spot, because a lot of these things are already things that you're incorporating. So as I kind of struggle to accomplish my to-do list, I also get to look at this idea for inspiration and be like, look what I also did. And so I certainly appreciate it. And so it's certainly something that I have done, especially with living overseas as I have, kind of embracing it to its fullest. So I have certainly a lot of things to still accomplish. And so now we're going to move to page 41, which I lovingly refer to as the B side. So I'm going to combine all of these sections. And that is just because I don't use this page often. When I finally narrowed down what do I need, I need the first page. I need all of those kind of core fundamentals to get me through my week. And then this other page are really nice to have, but I never really connected very strongly with them until they had some wonderful gems. And I do love the gems when it comes to them, and I certainly rely on them to do so. So maybe you want to use the meal plan exactly as designed, which is a meal plan. So that is something that you are planning. Or maybe it becomes more of a real-time meal tracker. So you can use it that way. I maybe this is where you kind of want to lean into the one good thing with some of the doodles. I think I saw Gloria in the chat. I would say she does a lot of lovely doodles, and I think it's also leaning into that creativity. And so I highly think if you need, again, what you need this week, if you need a break from maybe some of these sections, maybe it is the doodles or the stickers or something to kind of turn off your brain just a little bit and give that meditative component there. And so maybe it's leaning in a little bit into the meal plan for the soul. So maybe this is where you lean into those prompts. If you work with our 24-hour AI coaching, Jenny, maybe this is where you use some of her inspiration. Like I said, the daily kindness doodles are Gloria's. So it's always a great kind of inspiration there. And at the same time, they can be quite elaborate. It's leaning into the creativity. Maybe this is where the daily affirmations go, the daily rituals. Some daily priorities are just general notes to self. This section, it is a staple if I am heading on a trip, work or personal and professional. I do a clothing tracker here, and it has absolutely changed my ability to not overpack. I am a shoe person, and I can safely say that I have traveled anywhere between 1 to 2 pairs of shoes, which is unheard of for me at this point. So I absolutely use it as like kind of that packing planner. I have a trip down to London at the end of the month where I'm going to finally see Bailey, one of our other facilitators. I'm so excited, but that is absolutely going to get used to plan those clothing requirements. But maybe again, leaning into the mind map question of exploring your rituals, or evening or morning, maybe this is where that's going to be. Um, the mind body health plan is another one of those that you can either schedule in advance, or it is something that you can kind of do you can do as you go in real time. And sometimes, again, leaning into those alliterations. Nathania is one of our regular socialers. She does this wonderful mental check in with herself, the I feel and I need. I have really leaned into that recently. I was starting to feel a bit frazzled just kind of in the middle of my day, which it wasn't necessarily caused by work, but it was more of when I asked myself, how am I feeling? Well, I'm feeling frazzled. What do I need? I realized that I was hot. And that is because my boiler is right up here. So it gets very hot. Heat rises. So I was just unnecessarily putting myself kind of through the ringer just because I was hot. And so when I would get that, I'd ask myself, what do I need? I need to go downstairs and sit and cool down a little bit. And I realized that that was just the subtle change that I needed to do. And that was again, just because I sat and asked myself, what am I feeling? And kind of working through that. Maybe again, it's some more bucket list ideas. Maybe it is the 7 types of rest. Maybe it's a reading log. I know some folks are working on the decluttering. So maybe it's breaking down those different parts of your home that you want to potentially declutter. Here are some more, like I said, iconography, but I also like the mind body health plan because honestly, the someone somewhere still, those brought me to tears. And I think this is also one of those, like, I completely revamped my For You page recommendations, especially on Instagram. I am so grateful that I took the time to do so because these are now the amazing things that I get, instead of whatever else there is. And so I appreciate it. And like I said, I also liked this idea of, how 6 ways to ground yourself after a hard week because my week took a weird pivot. And so I loved all of these because these are certainly things that can be done. Maybe the shopping list will go hand in hand with the meal plan. I use it for my wardrobe packing. These are the incidentals and extra things that I need to pack, and that can be chargers, laptops, adapters, all of those things. But maybe this is where your bingo board lives. Maybe this is where your social check-in is. Maybe these are those mental and emotional reminders that you need, or the don't buy and buy options. Or again, leaning into a glimmer bingo and maybe some of those other stickers and ideas there. So I know that was a lot. I'm going to play one more song. And like I said, if you are not chair dancing by the end of this, I have not done my job. But we will then reconvene after this, so I will let you get to work and we'll see you soon. Oh, that song was so much shorter than I thought it was. But you have the different slides here, and then I did see that someone mentioned the currently page earlier. But the very last section is that I am loving. It gives you an opportunity to just throw out what is making you happy, what is making you smile, what is that something that is need, that all of those things that get you happy. And then on page 39, you will see that currently page. I love this. And I feel like, again, I use the same analogy where I am an avid book reader. And I love the fact that there are three lines here. And so I like to do it at the beginning of the month, the middle of the month, and the end of the month so that I have a beginning, a middle, and the end. So I then can tell that wonderful story of what my month looked like based on those ideas. And then I've also kind of become to appreciate this a little bit more because I also feel like it kind of falls in line with some of those, random questions that little kids ask, like, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite dinosaur? What's your favorite animal? Sometimes these are just fun to answer. Because when was the last time someone asked you, what are you enjoying? What are you wishing for? What are you anticipating? And I don't know if anybody gets asked those on a regular basis, but I know I don't. And it's even like I don't even get asked what I'm watching. And I think that's sad. So this is a really fun way for someone to potentially ask me these, and I then get to tell it. And so it's for a really fun story. So I highly recommend if you haven't tackled your currently page, definitely give it a moment. Like I said, that's the way I approach it. But there are definitely many options to do so. But I definitely think this is a fun, light exercise that is one of those that just helps. And then, as always, can you believe it? We have reached the end. It goes by so quickly. As always, we would love to consider to continue the conversation in the Silk and Sonder app, especially if you. Ooh, I was watching Stranger Things. So I love Stranger Things, and I've gotten back into Carnival Row. I like those kind of fantasy series, so that's what I'm currently watching. So I'm excited about those because I am definitely sad about Stranger Things. And then I went down the Heated Rivalry as well, and now it's just fun that all of my friends are coming back up to that because I've already seen it. But thank you for asking. And so we would love to continue the conversation in the Silk and Sonder app. You guys provide such amazing examples when you post your pages, and you provide such amazing inspiration for all of our Silk and Sonder family. So anytime you have and or want to share those, we love to see them. And then we have announced the official January exclusive. So this is an additional social that does come with a monetary cost, but it is the New Year Real You, your 2026 glow up that is hosted by Meha. And if you cannot attend it live, you will get the recording of it. So it is certainly a lovely opportunity that is coming up this week. So certainly sign up for that. If you have issues with the links, definitely reach out to hello@silkandsonder.com and they will be able to help you with that. And as always, this is a copy of my playlist, but I will include the Spotify link in the chat. And Maya has been busy in the chat as well. She has been including links to the Eventbrite, links to the recordings. If you miss any of our socials or want another facilitator's perspective, or even Kimberly L made the recommendation to go back and look at previous themes, previous words, especially when it comes to, we have some really, really good word of the year socials. A couple that one of our previous facilitators, Karen, did. I think Karen had a wonderful job when it came to helping determine word of the year. And I know Maya also adjusted some of the playlists. So if you are in our Elevate Planner, we have some socials around those pages as well. But as always, we are so glad that you joined us. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. You're going to have an amazing rest of your weekend. And I am excited to continue to work on alignment as we go into week 3 of 2026. So I hope to see you at another event real soon. Bye.
Signal fire, send out an SOS when you got nothing left. I'll meet you there, I'll meet you there. Blue skies and empty roads, sun shines but nothing grows here, out here. Danced in the desert sun, fast dreams they die too young, dear, my dear. Now the leaves are falling and the winter's coming, funny how the seasons change. Don't know where you're going, but I will come running if you ever lose your way. Light up a